Yeah, I want to put out a little bit about Georges Lakhovsky, the great Russian scientist and engineer who basically came up with a multi-wave oscillator that had a 98% success rate with terminal cancer patients and terminal patients and other diseases like leukemia. So it's not just it's a very powerful thing. But one thing is reading about his suspicious death, and obviously the machine was, one of the machines, or two of them, or whatever, was in a New York hospital having a great success rate. And right after he got hit by, Georges Lakhovsky got hit by a limousine in New York City in 1942, he went from Paris, France to New York City to, observe the effects of the machine and, basically maybe he can make improvements or whatever. He got hit by a limousine in New York City, and they took him to a hospital, and he died 3 days later. Now, another tidbit about that incident, very suspicious circumstances. First off, the big tip-off to me was that this machine that he had, the multi-wave oscillator, was taken out of the hospital after that. As soon as he died, the treatment was not available. But here's another one. Georges Lakhovsky, when he was hit by the limousine, he did not want to go to the hospital. He did not want to go to the hospital. So what does that tell you? He wasn't hurt that bad. Then why did he die? Is that telling you something? So, I think there's a lot more to this than you think. Now, the other thing is, I've seen a number of different devices out there. They call them Lakhovsky multi-wave oscillators, but they're different in design and all this type of stuff. The one I have coming it's a smaller one. It uses a smaller Tesla coil, uses one coil. It has 8 rings versus 12. It probably worked very well for the cat. I don't know. But maybe it's not powerful enough for a human. I don't know. But it's something I can experiment with for now without actually getting too deep into the technology right off the bat. It's something I can have right now. So we'll see some demonstrations on that. Interesting, too. I was beginning to wonder if Lakhovsky was Jewish, because there's like two types of skis. Ski and sky. Sky is usually Jewish, S-K-Y, and S-K-I is usually not Jewish. I think Lakhovsky was of Jewish heritage, and that kind of goes along with the the great scientific background, especially medical background, because in Israel today, who's number one in medical marijuana in the world? Israel. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. That's really a fact. Georges Lakhovsky wrote a lot of anti-Nazi articles while he was in France, and obviously when the Nazis started gaining more strength and everything, that was also part of his impetus to go to New York in 1942. So, because, the area was getting pretty not safe to be in at a time, so he probably would have traveled back to America. But it looks like there's some real forces out there that do not want you to have this particular type of, I don't know what you would call it, the elixir of life. I don't know if it's a medical treatment. It's more of a booster to life itself. That's what it seems to be. It doesn't work really it's not touted to work by really destroying a disease. It's touted to work by strengthening the frequencies of cells in the body that are not up to par because they're being knocked down by disease or microbes or cancers or whatever. So, but what's interesting is this, and I'm going to point this out because, and I picked this up in a few different areas because I've been reading on this extensively. It's like, you're thinking it's the electricity, it's the frequency spectrum that's making this happen, where it's going through such a broad base of frequencies that it makes the cells resonate at the right frequencies that are not up to snuff. But it's more than that, because this is like where it's like picking up it's doing something else. It's something else that's going on besides the actual electrical currents, something that is not understood by science right now at all. It almost sounds like magic or witchcraft, but it's not. It's actually something scientific, but it's not understood. And the thing is this: if you put the unit in a large Faraday cage, where the unit and the so-called patient is in between the waves, the two antennae, and you put the unit in a large Faraday cage, it does not work. In other words, the electricity is still working, the frequencies are still going, but it doesn't work because something else is going on. And another thing that was interesting was pointed out, it does not work on a full moon. Now, I don't want to get into superstition, witchcraft. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying there's probably, it looks like it's doing something else, that there's energies throughout the universe that we can't see, we don't measure. It's not electrical in nature. It's something that somehow that's directing more of these energies, these life-giving energies, to the body, and that's what's causing it to heal. That's not really why, it's not really, the frequencies and the electrical measurements that you're getting on the oscilloscope isn't really what's going on here, why it's working. There's something else going on. And I don't want to put this out as one of these things where, because I see a number of things on YouTube sometimes that they get into some really crazy stuff, but I do not want to put it out like that. But I'm trying to be very accurate with this. It looks like something else is actually going on. It's not actually the frequencies or all the different harmonics are going on. Somehow it's picking up something else. I mean, Tesla talked about this ether, whatever the hell it is, that we can't see, that all goes throughout the universe. I don't know, maybe there's a type of energy that it's picking up, that it's helping to direct to the body, that is helping the cells resonate more at their normal frequency. Because if this device is put in a Faraday cage in its entirety, the device works. It works. But somehow it's picking up something outside the device and directing it in. That's not actually being, like, in other words, it's not really the electrical current that's actually making the cells resonate at their optimum frequency again. Something else is doing it, and somehow this device is causing it to happen, but it's not exactly the electricity that's doing it directly. That's what's, and somehow I guess when the full moon is up, a lot of that is blocked out. Maybe that's why people say it's a weird time when the full moon is up. I mean, they've been saying that for centuries, but and they get into all kinds of crazy stories and stuff about that. But there might be some truth to that stuff. There might be something we don't understand, and then later on, a gazillion years from now, scientists will pick it up. But you can be thankful for Georges Lakhovsky for coming up with this, because now, actually, I think, in my opinion, some of the other devices that aren't exactly to his exact design, they might work. They might work. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not going to work. I know Dr. Bob Beck, now that I read, I was surprised that, I saw his name crop up from 1962, 1963, when he found a Lakhovsky device in the cellar of a hospital in California. Well, it looks like it was the only device he came up with that actually worked. That, he was tasked with reviewing all the devices in California or Southern California to see if they were snake oil or not. And he says that was one that was not. He said 99.9% were garbage. And he only examined 100-something of them, he said. So it looks like that was the only one that really worked. But he made one that was smaller, of a slightly different design. He used a printed circuit board. And he said even that one worked. I think Lakhovsky's design was better, because when the coils are suspended by silk string or nylon string or whatever, they can kind of like move a little bit and find their own exact frequency that they like best. In other words, if it's printed on a board, maybe that's not the best deal. But really nobody knows. Nobody knows. But I did find that very interesting. If you take this whole apparatus and put it in a Faraday cage, it does not have the effect that you want to have. So in other words, the device is still working. In other words, the Faraday cage is not around the person, it's around the whole thing. It just doesn't work. So somehow it's picking up something around around us that we don't see, that we don't touch, that we don't sense, we don't smell, or anything, and it's directing this force into the body. That's what's going on. That's really, really interesting. So you can thank Lakhovsky for this, and boy, it sure does look like he was shut up. I mean, I have to point out, even back in I think it was in the 1930s, I forgot who the head of the AMA, the American Medical Association, was at the time. They wanted to buy Dr. Royal Rife. He wanted to buy, the head of the AMA wanted to buy Dr. Royal Rife's patent for his cancer cure machine, using radio waves as a carrier signal and frequencies to kill cancer-causing microbes. And Royal Rife said no. Well, you know what? If it was a hoax, why the hell did the head of the AMA, try to buy it? Really? Common sense. And again, Lakhovsky, when he was hit by the limousine, he did not want to go to the hospital. So is that telling you something's up there? I mean, if he was like fully conscious and, I don't know, maybe he had bruises or whatever, and then he died. Well, 3 days later, and he was probably getting the supposed best care going. It almost reminds me of witnesses that seen plane crashes in Bosnia that, with Ron Brown, that walked over to the helicopter and then died on a medevac on the way out, right? That type of stuff. So, looks like there's people that do not want us to have this information. And then later on, like I did touch on, where Bob Beck, who came out with the blood electrification device, fully knew all about Lakhovsky's device years before, and he said it cured just about everything out there. And he says the real proof was it worked on animals who don't know they're being treated with something. A person, might, if they're being treated with something and they believe that they're going to get better, they can actually heal themselves just by their own positive attitude. There's been, it doesn't always work, but sometimes that does help. But when you're using this device on an animal that can't walk, and all of a sudden they can walk again, it's telling you that the device actually works. So Georges Lakhovsky, it looks very interesting, and I got my device coming in here fairly soon. It's a smaller portable one, but I'll be showing a little bit about what I think about it and how it works and everything. And I'll probably give my cat a few treatments too, because someday he might be 50-something-year-old cat and break the Guinness World Book of Records. Unfortunately, my cat is going to be subjected to, not unfortunately, I give him all the best health foods and vitamins and supplements and stuff too, so I do the same thing. But I think this is a very slick idea. I think it's a slick idea because it's not just about healing when you have a problem, it's about boosting your life forces. And actually, back in the 1930s, there wasn't too many of these devices sold back then, as far as the Lakhovsky multi-wave oscillator. But other things, such as the violet ray wand, that was sold. That was like operating off of a Tesla coil, and it was used to treat, areas on the skin that had a problem, or if you had a cut, you used the violet ray wand and go over it with the, it's basically kind of working the same way. But the coil also brings in healthy ions, healthy ozone, a particular type of ozone that's healthy, not a bad type, and healthy ions to the body too. So it's doing a lot of different things, and some things that we don't understand. I just found it very interesting. Is you put the whole, like if you had a building that was a Faraday cage, and you put the whole device in it with the person, and it's working, and all the measurements are working. Somehow it doesn't work. It doesn't work where it has the effect, even though you can electronically measure. It's putting out the right current, it's putting out the right frequencies, and all this type of stuff, because it's doing something else. It's concentrating something else that we don't understand yet. So I found that highly, highly interesting. So anyway, Georges Lakhovsky, just got to get that word out there, because this should be a device that's in every household in America, really, when you think about it. It may be that damn good.